Party in the Interruption, but I'm Pablo Torre. And Tony, 108-year-old Helen Denmark says that she stays young by, quote, drinking wine, eating dessert, and flirting with men with mustaches.
I'm Tony Kornheiser. Hey, Helen, do you like what you see? Come on. Huh? You like?
Oh, good Lord.
Helen Denmark. You think that's a made-up name? I don't know.
It sounds like an alias. Yeah, sounds a little like an alias.
Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. Wilbon has the day off. I'm joined by our great friend, the host of the podcast, Pablo Torre Finds Out, Mr. Pablo Torre. Wow, that's great cheering. The people love Pablo. So why don't you take the first lead?
Oh, a rare but deserved honor, Tony. I want to begin, though, with the latest chapter. The latest chapter in the growing legend of Paul Skeens. Because the Pirates' rookie ace has pitched 7 no-hit innings. This afternoon against the Brewers, he struck out 11. And then manager Derek Shelton pulled him after those 99 pitches, scuttling his chance at a no-hitter. So was Shelton right to pull Paul Skeens, Tony?
He's right long-term and he's right short-term. By pulling him out now with all the attention on this kid, he makes him even more of a legend. He's been in the bigs for 3 months, I believe, right? He's 6-0. He's got a 1.90 ERA. He now has 89 strikeouts in 66 and a third innings. He's part myth. He's part legend. He's Roy Hobbs. He's Fernando Valenzuela. He's Caitlin Clark. He needs to start in the All-Star game. This only makes him larger than he was before.
Yeah, but no pressure or anything. If he's Caitlin Clark and Roy Hobbs and every other mythical dragon you can imagine. Tony, the story here is that the starting pitcher as a phenomenon has been on the decline for a while. You know, you have to go back to, I think, a personal regret of yours, the fact that you spent all of that time rooting for Steven Strasburg to get to somebody who engendered this kind of hype and fame. But you go back to Kerry Wood, you go back to Doc Gooden, and on and on and on. Paul Skeens is one of these creatures that has to be protected in the modern game. And so when you have this tension here about protection, this endangered species, and also the face, potentially, of pitching in baseball, Tony, I want to make something clear. This guy is going to be the thing at the All-Star game happening on Tuesday. And so when you think about how his team, the Pirates, is managing him, of course they're going to pull him because they pull every pitcher nowadays if they get through 7, even if there have been no-hit innings. But then you get to, okay, are we going to see him be the star? We'll even take the mound at the All-Star game, too.
Oh, I can't imagine that he's not going to start the All-Star game. You can't predict. It's 1 inning. And everybody wants to see him. I won't say everybody. I certainly want to see him pitch against Aaron Judge. And it's a 1-inning thing, and he'd be warming up in a bullpen during that layover time anyway. So I don't think that that's going to hurt him. Normally, I would mind that a manager pulled him. But again, in his particular case, I think it adds to the legend. I'm going to give you this one statistic. There's only 2 pitchers in history to have multiple outings of 11-plus strikeouts and give up no hits. Only 2. There's Nolan Ryan and this kid. All right, that's pretty rare company, pretty rare air. Very impressive.
Tony,
let's move now.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to ask you, the no-hitter has also become so common recently. I wonder if that factors into this too, right? The whole idea here is that Paul Skeens is going for a bigger game, a bigger accomplishment even, and that just requires him to be healthy. And so risk aversion, when it's diluted, when the accomplishment you got preempted from has been diluted, I get why teams are more willing to do this than ever. That's just the point I wanted to make.
I think it makes it a bigger deal. Just like when there's a bad call at first and a perfect game is lost, everybody remembers that one and not the others. Let's move now to the United States Olympic basketball team, doing a lot better against Canada than they did against Cooper Flagg. Team USA beat Canada 86-72 last night in a game played in Las Vegas. Anthony Edwards came off the bench, ended up the leading scorer with 13, but defense was most important. The U.S. team held Canada to 33% shooting, had 11 steals, 9 blocks, and forced 13 turnovers. Pablo, did you see any cause for concern for Team USA?
Yeah, I could pick nits here. I could talk about Joel Embiid really struggling with the fact that you foul out after 5 fouls in international play instead of 6 in the NBA. His game's going to need to be adjusted, as well as his entire body as he recovers from being one-eyed and one-legged in the postseason. That's an issue for the biggest guy, literally the biggest guy in the field. But, Tony, this is also audition right now. This is the auditioning phase of basketball for this Olympic team. And so for me, if you have Steph Curry and LeBron in a lineup, and you have this endless well of talent, which you're really worried about because these are auditions for the actual games that matter, is ego management. And from that perspective, I have to believe that the biggest issue when it comes to ego is a story we'll get to later, not the guys who actually matter the most. Everybody on this team understands we're here to play a role. We're here to figure out how do we fit together. We don't do this very often. We've crammed together in a hotel ballroom, and now we're testing out lineups. I'm not worried because they have this abundance of talent.
It is a stunner, of course, that Embiid fouled out in 12 minutes. In 12 minutes. I mean, part of me wonders if USA Basketball goes to the 76ers and says, do you want to Kawhi this guy? You want to just get rid of him completely? Which, of course, they're not going to do. I was surprised at the score. What is the score? 86-72. I understand it's only 40 minutes and not 48, but that's a really low score, 86-72. Cause for concern, not really. Maybe Canada was playing possum. Maybe they didn't want to show us what they've really got and lull us into a false sense of security. I learned the other day, Wilbon on this show is really nervous about playing Canada. And he also taught me, and I had no idea, that Canada had 26 NBA players. I never would have said 26.
Crazy depth.
I'm sure they're not all on this team because that would take a lot of cars to get them there. My position is very simple, Pablo. We have more better players than anybody else has, and we should win. The second team right now, let me just give you these names. Anthony Edwards, Tyrese Halliburton, Bam Adebayo, Jason Tatum, and Anthony Davis. That's better than anybody else's starting team. It is.
And
it's
Tony, and Kevin Durant didn't play in this because he's recovering, and he's the perfect international style of player. LeBron James and Steph Curry are playing together for the first time at this level of competition, and Steph Curry has never played in an Olympics before. You're telling me I get a motivated Steph Curry, a motivated LeBron, plus the all-NBA guys? At the risk of being jingoistic, I feel pretty good about America's chances.
Me too. Let's get to the story that you wanted to mention before.
Yes.
Let's go to the intrigue over the selection of Boston's Derek White to replace Kawhi Leonard on Team USA ahead of teammate Jaylen Brown, the Finals MVP. Grant Hill explained his reason for taking White, saying White's role on the Olympic team would be similar to his role on the Celtics. He won't really have to change anything. Pablo, are you satisfied with Hill's explanation, or do you think there's more to the story?
So I'm not going to lose sleep over Derek White being chosen over Jaylen Brown because Derek White is the better basketball fit, given all of the stars we've exhaustively chronicled now. But I also, if I was Jaylen Brown, am absolutely furious about this. Because remember, this team in specific is about the most high-profile team since the '92 Dream Team. And so there is a mixture of both prestige and honor here, as well as an actual basketball need. And Jaylen Brown, Tony, let's just remember, was the Finals MVP. He has on this team, as he's looking out, fogging the glass of this whole organization, Drew Holiday, Jason Tatum, and of course, Derek White. 3 of the 4 guys who are Americans who are eligible, everybody but Jaylen Brown, they made it. And so I get why he's mad, but I also get why they don't need him in the way that they need a specialist like Derek White.
So I worked at newspapers for over 40 years, and of course there's more to this story. I don't know exactly what the more is, but I do know that Jaylen Brown is very upset and has been posting things to indicate he's upset. One of the posts was interpreted to me as being, let's look a little bit more closely at what just happened. And one of them was a shot at Nike. Now, Nike dresses all the Olympic players, and Derek White is a Nike guy, and Jaylen Brown is not a Nike guy. So there's the intimation that he was picked, Derek White, because he's a Nike guy, which Grant Hill said was ridiculous. I'm going to defend picking White in the same way that you're going to defend it. First of all, he's a great defensive player. In the most recent playoffs, he had career highs in points scored, in assists and rebounds, and shooting percentage from 3. And unlike Jaylen Brown, he is not an established star. He's had to learn to play with established stars, make them better while making himself better. And Pablo, they got so many stars, I think you need a worker bee. I think he's going to be a worker bee. So I can defend that, but I can certainly understand how Jaylen Brown would say, what? What happened?
And Tony, keep in mind, Jaylen Brown has been conspiratorial in nature for a long time. I'm not saying he's Kyrie Irving, but he's a guy who chooses his words carefully and often clumsily, and he's intimating that they're out to get him. And so the thing about a conspiracist here is that all you need is plausibility. And the Nike thing, I agree, Nike is big business, they matter. And there's also this notion that Jaylen Brown, by the way, plays really good defense. He could be the defensive stopper. They just don't want the headache at Team USA of managing the ego of a guy who's the finals MVP. Let's just make it really easy. Get Derek. Derek doesn't complain. Derek won't be tweeting anything. Let's just get Derek. I get the choice.
I wonder if they checked with Jason Kidd first. Let's take a break. Coming up, is U.S. men's soccer right to focus on Jurgen Klopp to replace Greg Berhalter? We're going to ask Taylor Twellman.
We'll also ask him who the team should focus on if Klopp stays on his sabbatical.
The Jason Kidd thing got so much run when he deliberately said that Jaylen Brown was better than...
Why take...
After the firing of head coach Greg Berhalter, let's get into what might be next for the U.S. men's program. We're pleased to welcome back the lead analyst on MLS Season Pass on Apple TV, Mr. Taylor Twellman. He joins us from the American Century Golf Championship in Tahoe, which we will talk about later. But let's start with this. The Athletic reports that Jurgen Klopp has declined initial overtures from the United States, maintaining he wants a break from soccer, but that the United States remains very interested in him. Taylor, why are so many people excited about Jurgen Klopp?
Well, one, Tony, I want to make sure that Jurgen Klopp isn't a 100% no, because if there's any little bit of an angle of a yes, then you can manipulate the situation, bring in an interim head coach, and then look at it. But it's all about what Jurgen Klopp epitomizes. Look at what his tenure was at Liverpool. It's all about positive energy. It's all about going for it, going for broke, winning, playing a style that suits the American profile player, which is on the front foot, a high line, high pressure, not necessarily relying with the ball at their feet, but more so the athleticism and the strong characteristics of the American player. So much about what Liverpool was during his tenure was even if they lost, they went for it. And so much of that mentality is the American way.
But Taylor, we got to get to the money here because USA boss Matt Crocker says that salary will not be at issue here, won't be a problem. Do you believe that? Do you believe that money will not be an obstacle?
I do, my man, but I'm going to ask the question, where was that 2.5 years ago? Why after the 22 World Cup do you now have to come out and say money wasn't an issue? That should have been said immediately after you saw what Greg Berhalter did. They failed to qualify for the 2018 World Cup. They get out of the group stage. They move on. The next manager should have been brought in, and the message should have been sent to the fans, to the players, and to the sponsors. Money's not an issue. You know why? Because we're having the World Cup in our backyard. This is going to be the biggest moment in U.S. men's soccer history ever. More so than the 94 World Cup, because you've got the infrastructure of Major League Soccer. You've got the development of the American player and the point of view of the American player at the highest it's ever been. My man, I'm just curious. Why do we have to say that now after a failure in Copa America? Why didn't we say that after the 2022 World Cup and gone out and gotten that guy then?
So with that disappointment in mind, with those stakes in mind, Taylor, if it's not Klopp, who do you like?
I need someone big. I need someone bold and brash. And the reason why I say that, the spotlight's on me here in Tahoe. I need someone that walks up into this podium and in this stage and takes all the attention away from the players. I need someone that symbolizes, I've been there. I've done that. This is how we're going to go about it. I also want someone behind the closed doors that when he or she walks into that locker room, every single player is nervous. Their backs are up. They're scared about their position, because this hire, Pablo, is an 18 to 20 month hire. Anyone that tells you that it's about the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years, no. That's the technical director. That's the federation's job. The manager's job is the first team. It's about results, and it's a 20-month hire. You've got to be big, bold, and brash in doing so.
It's so great to listen to you do this. It's so great. We'll get you out of here on this. Are there enough competitive games between now and the World Cup really for any coach to make a significant impact?
No, Tony, and that's the biggest disappointment about the Copa America. And that's why I was arguing about this with anyone that wanted to really dissect the opportunity of Copa America. This needed to be your World Cup qualifying. You can't risk not getting out of the group because you don't have World Cup qualifying now to prepare for the World Cup. And so now here we are. And so the predicament is you find the replacement to Berhalter. But the second one is now when you guys come together, if you're only going to be playing the Panamas and the Central American teams, well, now you're behind the eight ball because now you don't know if you're good enough against the Colombias, the Uruguays, the Brazils, the Belgiums, the France, the Englands of the world. That is a huge predicament for the United States. But, Tony, that's a bigger issue, even more so down the road as it is now, because the way the money is driven the game in Europe and South America, those bigger clubs, they don't have enough free dates to play the United States and Mexico's of the world.
Love everything you said. Got to shift to the golf. You're out there playing in Lake Tahoe in this celebrity event. I'm told that there's an odds on you 16-1. Should I put money on you? Are you good enough to bring me back money?
Yeah, I think I would, buddy. I would. I'd go to ESPN Bet right now because I died and went to heaven. American Century just put me in heaven right now playing golf in front of people. I am playing with house money. I think you should play with house money with my odds.
Totally fantastic. I hope you can beat Romo.
And by the way,
Fish.
Michael's
Thank
been
you,
out
Taylor.
here, Tony. Where have you been? You got to get out here.
Don't encourage
I don't travel well.
Don't encourage
Don't travel well.
Tony, you can caddy
Let's
for
take
me.
one last
You can
break.
caddy for me.
One last break. I can go about 2 holes before my back drops out. Still to come, Bill Belichick gets a gig.
And players from Uruguay battle Colombia in the stands.
Yeah, 16-1.
Tonight on
Happy time, people. Happy 29th birthday, Joey Bosa. The Chargers took Bosa with the 3rd overall pick in 2016 out of Ohio State. 2 years later, his younger brother Nick was drafted 2nd 49ers. Joey Bosa has been Defensive Rookie of the Year and a 4-time Pro Bowl selection. Last 2 seasons, Bosa has played in only 14 games due to multiple injuries. Bosa and Khalil Mack both restructured their contracts to stay with the Chargers and new coach Jim Harbaugh. Bosa endeared himself to the Chargers cafeteria staff when they received a grade of F from the NFLPA report card, and Bosa said, quote, "They work harder than literally anyone else in the entire facility. They'll prepare you food that's plenty good," unquote.
So Joey Bosa, Tony, no guarantees in 2025. Could be his last season with the Chargers. But just so you know, the best cafeteria food apparently in the NFL, Dolphins A, the worst, the Bengals, an F-, which apparently is possible on this scale.
F- bad. Happy anniversary, Babe Ruth. This is posthumous, obviously, but on this day 110 years ago, George Herman Ruth made his major league debut as a 19-year-old pitcher for the Boston Red Sox, going 7 innings and beating Cleveland 4-3. Ruth spent his first 5 seasons primarily as a pitcher. Years later, after being traded to the New York Yankees, Ruth became a full-time hitter and the most famous baseball player of all time. Last May, Shohei Ohtani passed Ruth's career strikeouts total of 501, and baseball officially welcomed Ohtani to the 500 strikeout, 100 home run club, which previously consisted of one member, Babe Ruth. Ruth still has the wide edge in homers, 714 to 199.
Yeah, just a small difference there. Tony, I feel like Babe Ruth has become underrated as time has gone on, which is stunning to me because he was, of course, the most famous player, as you mentioned. He was also arguably the first global athlete celebrity in history. Roaring 20s, Babe Ruth advertising everything, marketing everything, famous in every way at a time when Americans had to pay attention to the national pastime in earnest. It's a remarkable thing that I think the young people out there may have forgotten, how famous he actually was.
Happy trails to the Copa America for Uruguay. Colombia took a 1-0 lead in the first half and won by that score, despite playing the whole second half a man down after Daniel Munoz got ejected for his second yellow card. But the crazier action happened after the game. First, the teams jostled each other in a scrum. Then about a dozen Uruguayan players went into the stands to confront Colombia fans. Darwin Nunez was seen throwing punches. Uruguay's captain said his teammates were trying to protect their families from several Colombia fans who had had too much to drink.
Yeah, apparently Nunez was defending his son reportedly in the stands. All I have to say about this is the next game is coming to, of course, Miami, where I am. Bet on more security. More security for that one.
Big finish quickly. Here we go. Bill Belichick will join the cast of Inside the NFL on the CW. Is that a good fit?
NFL, yes. CW, not quite. The Phillies beat the Dodgers for a second straight night last night. Tony, is that a big deal?
First team to 60 wins and 22-13 against teams with winning records. Yeah. Michael Kopech of the White Sox pitched an immaculate ninth inning against Twins yesterday. You impressed, right?
I am. He's the second in White Sox history to do it after Sloppy Thurston in 1923. Wimbledon women's semis, Jasmine Paolini and Barbora Krejcikova made it through. Your thoughts?
Paolini, she was just in the finals of the French. Sloppy Thurston, huh? Went to high school with him. Last one, men's semi tomorrow. Do you like Djokovic to make it through?
I do. He gets booed, he gets more powerful, and he's facing a 25 seed in Lorenzo Musetti. So yeah, give me the Joker.
I don't know why I didn't name my son Sloppy. It's such a great name. We're out of time. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
And I am Pablo Sloppy Torre. Thank you for watching. This is my show, Pablo Torre Finds Out. But for now, here is SportsCenter.
The fact that you would be called sloppy makes me so happy. Pablo, was Jaylen Brown snubbed when Grant Hill chose Derek White to replace Kawhi Leonard on the Olympic team?
He was snubbed, Tony, but there are justified snubs. And I want to give you the case for why it's a snub indefinitely.
All right, Pablo. Was Jaylen Brown snubbed when Grant Hill chose Derek White to replace Kawhi Leonard on the Olympic team?
He was snubbed, Tony, but there are justified snubs. And I want to give you the case for why it's a snub indefinitely. Okay, this is not merely an honor, it's also a matter of basketball fit. And Derek White is just the easier call because you have all of the other stars on the team who are a lot like, egos you got to manage.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's the definition of a snub. Come on now. There's no other way to look at this, even if you're not Jaylen Brown. This guy is the finals MVP. This is the guy that Jason Kidd made a big deal about in the playoffs, saying he's the best player they've got. And now there are 3 Celtics on the Olympic team.
Yep.
Jason Tatum, Drew Holiday, and Derek White, and none of them are named Jaylen Brown. So there is no way to look at it as if it is not a snub. Now, I can justify it as well. I mean, I think sometimes you have too many stars, you need some worker bees, and I think that Derek White will certainly be that. But it is a snub, and here's what I wonder about, Pablo. Next year when training camp begins, what is the relationship going forward of Derek White and Jaylen Brown? This is not Derek White's fault. It is not his fault.
Nope.
But will Jaylen Brown look at him differently as a result of this?
Yes, the Boston Celtics, their front office is somewhere putting their face into their hands, asking, wait a minute, we were so close to being the most boring title-winning team of all time, and now we're feeding shows like ours, Tony, for as long as Jaylen Brown happens to be conspiratorial, which happens to be a permanent condition, I fear. But I am not. I'm a temporary fill-in, so that is it for me. We're done. Back to you.